Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, redefine your story, reignite your sparkle, and create a life that you love with Laura Currer. We talk about using her experiences to improve current support services. Your story is what you make it, and choice, hope, and empowerment are key messages surrounding sexual violence.
In 2015, Laura was raped, but that's just the beginning of her story. Since then, she has gone on to create a life she adores, building a business doing what she loves and helping other women to do the same. She has spread her message of positivity and hope to over 30 million people worldwide, helping people to own their power, tell their story their way, and build a life they love. Through Sparkle, Laura shares her insights and experience, offers new ways to work with her and get involved, and most crucially, show you that there is a life after trauma. She is passionate about helping people to reach their full potential, own their power, and define their future their way. So, Laura, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a writer or a journalist. I thought that was the direction that I was going to take. And then I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a barrister, I think probably because my dad was. And because everybody told me I was very good at arguing. So I thought this could be a successful opportunity. But I suppose I always had a passion for writing. And when I was in uni, I wrote for a local paper. And I've always kind of written in my own time ever since. But throughout uni, probably increasingly, I've always been really interested in people. So my degree was history, but I did loads of sociology modules and psychology modules. And then started to look more. I was teaching and I was coaching and I was doing kind of counselling work and stuff like that, and really just had an interest in people, which grew and kind of grew into my career, which was in the NHS, and then as a result has kind of led me to where I am today. But that was largely kind of formed by my experiences along the way.
Okay, talk us through those experiences.
So predominantly the reason that I set Sparkle up is because I was raped. So almost 4 years ago now, I was the victim of a sexual assault. I was drugged by 2 males and I was raped. And that really kind of on paper, that's the kind of crystallizing moment. It's the turning point. Personally, I don't feel that way because I always feel like this kind of route of public speaking and of being kind of entrepreneurial and of setting up businesses and of just trying to do good and be kind and be creative with it is always what I've wanted to do. But undeniably, my interest is the wrong word, my passion for supporting people who've experienced trauma, kind of the most defined point was being assaulted myself and going through the process of recovery and of services and of systems that support people through that, and realising how well-intentioned broadly but inept they are. They're just not designed to be able to put people at the heart of it. And there were bits of the process that were really good, and there were people that I encountered that were so kind and so warm and that really made that journey easier. But there were so many parts of it where I was just like, this is crap. Like, people within the system were saying to me, your life's never going to be the same, you're never going to get married, you're never going to have kids, you're never going to be able to have a career now. And like, when you're in your most vulnerable state, so when like you legitimately like can't work out how to get out of bed in the morning, you don't know whether you're coming or going, like PTSD, like anxiety, all of these things. If somebody in authority says to you, oh, your life's over, you kind of think like, oh my God, well, my life's over. These people have experience of this and they know more than I do right now, so I guess my life's over.
I don't know why they'd say that. How helpful is that? Or what is the purpose?
It isn't helpful. I think, I don't know, people say stuff like that, I think to make you feel like they get it. I don't know, like they understand that you're having a crap time, or to maybe try and in a kind of backward way acknowledge the magnitude of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why people say
you having
it.
children or having a life?
I don't know, because I'm never going to be able to function as a normal human being again.
Oh, okay.
Generally, I guess. And I think like that's basically the reason.
Bless you.
No, I know. And it's very strange. And a lot of people react quite badly to it. And friends and family and, you know, professionals and work colleagues react badly to it because I guess, coming from a place of fear. So people are like, well, why were you wearing that? Or why did you do that? Or you're so stupid for doing that. And
it's all the victim blaming.
yeah, and it's difficult because you have to try and kind of apply some level of insight to that situation and realize it's not about you, it's about their fear of this happening to them or somebody close to them. So if we can pinpoint that it was what Laura was wearing or what Laura did that was the problem, if we don't do that, then we can make ourselves safe, or we can protect ourselves or other people that we care about. So we've got to make it Laura's problem, because if it's the problem of the world, if it's, you know, if it's something that just can't be stopped, that's too terrifying for people to acknowledge. So people say really shitty things to you because it's a kind of defense mechanism.
I actually think that women should be allowed to walk down Newcastle High Street naked at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
If they wanted to, and
Let's
not
do it.
be at risk.
We'll get some banners. Hey,
I'm not sure the world's ready to see this.
We're so ready.
without a fear of being assaulted.
No, completely. But that's the point.
So it's like,
Greggs would be selling tons of sausage rolls if they're staying open all night.
I think they're 24 hours now, most of them anyway, aren't they?
Exactly. You can sit in, they do everything now.
It's a drive-through just down the road.
I know. I love me a drive-through. I really do.
Okay, so I love the fact that you have not let this traumatic experience define you. So talk us through what your life was like before. What was the plan?
My life was broadly the same. People don't like to acknowledge this. Yeah. I can't lie. I can't say that my life was drastically different and now it's, you know, been transformed negatively or positively. I think that as you go through life, it's a continual process of growth and change and of finding your purpose and then adapting that purpose and growing with it and allowing it to kind of take you where it'll go. So for me, 4 years ago, I was earlier on in that process. But, you know, 4 years from now, I'll be in a different place than I am now. So really it was the same. I think probably because of the assault, I am more kind of self-assured and more forthright because I was kind of given no opportunity but to kind of get to know myself really well, really quickly and try and you learn more about yourself when you go through trauma because you're like, why am I reacting like this? What does this mean? What works? What doesn't work? Like, how do I get myself through this? What does my life look like now? And it forces you to take stock and to kind of dig in if you choose to. And I did choose to. That's my approach to dealing with anything is like, right, like sit with it. Like sit, kind of wrap yourself up, deal with it, let yourself heal, and then start to move forward from it. I was the same. I think broadly, you know, my aspiration was always the same. I want to help people. That sounds really corny, but it's the truth. It's, you know, I was about to start the NHS grad scheme. I had a real interest in mental health. I'd always had a real interest in mental health and helping people who, you know, who were vulnerable. And that was stuff that I'd done throughout school and throughout uni. And I had, you know, I'd tutored and worked with underprivileged kids. And it was always going this way that I wanted to do something that had kind of heartfelt meaning and purpose. But yeah, I was still into the same thing. Like people say stuff like this, like, what were you like before? They said, well, before I really liked rock music and now I only like R&B. Like suddenly like experiencing trauma, like your interests just like jar and everything shifts. But yeah, this
and
was
like gardening all of a sudden.
Yeah, literally like, well, you know, previously I liked to knit, but now it's not like that. You are still the same person. I think this is a large part of why I felt like I wanted to do something with this process, because people think that, and I felt this, and I'll be really honest about it, a lot of the services that I found and that I accessed, a lot of the charities that I accessed just weren't for me, because they were very, a lot of charities that I experienced, not all, but a lot, in this region and in other regions, because I moved to Leeds straight afterwards for the grad scheme, were very anti-men. They were very hardline feminist, and very like everything was held in a way that you would imagine a charity would be able to provide. So it was very much like church halls and dingy rooms, and that alone, it gives you the impression that your life now is less than, that you are being kind of boxed away, because the services that you're now being told are for you look completely different to anything that you would have accessed historically. And this was a part of why I set up Sparkle and why I made Sparkle kind of what it is, because people still feel the same way about life and things that they felt beforehand. So their interests haven't changed. The spaces that they want to occupy, the views that they have, the values that they have are still the same. So if you weren't really hardline feminist in your views, I am feminist, but I don't hate men. But if you weren't like that before, just because you've been raped doesn't mean that you should suddenly become an activist for something that you never asked for. So it just felt to me that it was like, right, you've been raped, now you have to sit in this box. And I actually felt like, you've been excluded from mainstream society because you've been raped, you're broken now, so you're not allowed here anymore. And then if you didn't toe the same kind of line that these charities towed and have the same kind of tone and views, you weren't allowed in that space either. So I felt like I didn't fit in those spaces, and I felt quite judged a lot of times because I would still get dressed up, I would still wear heels, I would still wear makeup, I would still listen to the same music and do the same things. And it was as if like, oh, you're a bad feminist because, like, do you know what I mean? Like, because you wearing heels and you're doing all of these things that are just to impress men, and it's you kind of end up in no man's land. I felt like I was in no man's land because society was telling me I couldn't be the person I was before and occupy the space that I occupied before. But then this new space that was being offered, I was like, this isn't for me. Yeah, exactly. But like the point is it's right for some people, and I, you know, not to kind of sound judgmental or dismissive, the services that exist do a great job for the people that they fit. But I didn't fit, and I was like, well, if I don't fit, other people don't fit. So where do you go to get that support, but without feeling like you need charity and without feeling like your life needs to fundamentally change, and you need to
hate men and
hate men and be locked away and
wear flat shoes
and you know, do all of these things that just weren't me, which was really why I created Sparkle, because I felt like, where's the hope? There needs to be something different.
Definitely. So talk us through. Sorry, James, I'm not letting you talk again. It's normal.
Yeah.
But what that takes me back to is that in the services that you accessed or received, there wasn't that element of, it was more sympathy rather than an empathetic approach. Whereas what you could say is that you always had an intention to work with mental health or people development, etc., but now having experienced all that you've experienced, that provides a platform that gives you an opportunity really to create something that doesn't exist, to really help other people that don't fit into this box of what currently exists.
Completely. And I think that I felt quite uniquely positioned to do that because I had been on one side of it because I'd lived it and I had had that kind of personal experience. I was also working for the NHS, firstly in a mental health trust and then in a commissioning organisation at the time. So I was working within the teams that were supporting and commissioning the Sexual Assault Referral Centre and subsequent services. So I understood how it felt and I understood how it worked, and I think that put me in a really unique position to be able to do something positive to help this process because I'd lived it and I understood it. And I think that combination was relatively unique, and there were elements. So for me, for example, the reason I started Sparkle was because I was like, right, what was really bad for me? What needs to change? I tried to ring. So I was assaulted from, I guess, about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning to about 7 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. On that Friday night, I tried to ring any number. I mean, this is the problem. We don't talk about rape. So if you're raped, what do you Google? Nobody knows. So we need to start talking about it so people are best placed to be able to deal with and support in an incident. God forbid that should happen. So I was trying to ring somebody. I was Googling like rape Newcastle, and I was trying to work out if there was like a helpline or like, who do I ring? I don't feel ready to ring the police yet. I can't articulate the word rape, but like in the back of my mind somewhere, I knew that there were like forensic timeframes and stuff that I should be probably kind of cognizant of. So I was trying to ring somebody and I found a number and I rang it, and it was like, our services operate from 10 till 2 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. If you'd like to leave a message, you know, a member of staff will get back to you when our office is open on Monday. And I was like, well, I'm not going to leave a voicemail for this one, I don't think. Like, don't know what I'm going to say. Hung up. And if somebody had answered that phone then, I would have been able to get samples taken that would have given me a better chance of conviction in court. Because by the time that I did have a forensic examination 24 hours after that point, drugs were out of my system. I believe that I was spiked. That was out of my system. And a lot of the forensic time frame, the evidence, the longer, you wait, the poorer the quality of evidence is, which is the kind of harsh reality. So I was like, right, we need a 24-hour crisis line. This is stupid. Like, how doesn't this exist? This is madness.
Because if you think of any other crime,
no, I know.
You need to get to a site so that any form of evidence in a murder scene or anything isn't contaminated by people trampling the scene, etc. It's already there, isn't it?
I suppose the last place you want to go though is traipse along to your local police station, isn't it?
No, exactly. This was the thing. So it was just not. There just wasn't the right fit at all. Yeah,
what do you even say?
Exactly, and that's the challenge, is nobody can articulate it because nobody just says rape or do you know what I mean? Like, there's still this massive stigma around it, and that's why I do a lot of the work that I do with public speaking and with other things, because we need to get talking about it. People need to have the vocabulary to be able to articulate this. So I started speaking to commissioners through contacts that I knew and just trying to get out and knocking on doors and speaking to everybody, and managed to then sit on a commissioning panel to commission a 24-hour crisis service, which now exists for the Northeast region. So that's accessible now, and you can go in at any time, and you can call at any time with no obligation to contact the police. It is the SARC 24-hour crisis line, and I'll send you a link to the number to share. So that exists now. And then through having those conversations, through volunteering with services, because I was acutely aware that I was in a bit of a bubble of my own experience. Like, I knew what rape felt like for me, but for different demographics, I had no idea really. So I started volunteering and working with different groups and with, far more kind of vulnerable groups, with sex workers and people who've been trafficked and really marginalised, to try and understand what the need was and how I could use my experience positively to plug that gap.
So talk us through what you did with Sparkle.
So initially, my vision was, and still is, to create really positive, hopeful, empowering spaces for people to create the life that they want. So Sparkle's kind of 3 core values are to redefine your story, reignite your sparkle, and create a life that you love. Because this isn't the be all and end all. The fact that I was raped is exceptionally, unfortunate and was very distressing. And I don't play that down for a minute. It really was awful. It was an awful, awful time. But it's not the main thing about me. It's not even one of the top 10 most important things about Laura. It's a part of a story that has been and goes on. And I think that what I always say is, it seems so bizarre to me that when you're the victim of an assault, you are completely passive in that situation. You have no part to play in it at all. And when I was assaulted, I was 22. And I had actively lived every day for those 22 years. I had made good decisions, I'd made bad decisions, but they were my decisions and I stood by them. And I had really actively lived all of those days except for those 6 hours. So how bizarre then that society tells us that we should be defined by the only period of time in our lives where we weren't physically active and present. And I feel really strongly about that. So those 6 hours, the only 6 hours of my life where Laura hasn't been there, and I wasn't there, I was unconscious, they're not going to define my life. And there were more important things that came before, and there are far more important things that come after. And that is really why I wanted to create Sparkle, because it was exceptionally difficult to recover from an assault. And I think that I was well placed to recover. I was in a fortunate position. I had supportive friends and family. I was financially comfortable. I had a career. I had, a workplace who were supportive. I didn't have any existing mental health issues, substance misuse. All of those things worked in my favour, and it was still exceptionally, exceptionally hard. So if that's how hard I found it, then how difficult must it be for people who have far more challenging circumstances and who don't have those positive messages around them reinforced and don't have that resilience? Then they'll just believe that their life's over, that their life is over, and that it's never going to be the same again, and that they'll never achieve their full potential.
And if they're being told that,
yeah,
it's you taking on other people's self-limiting beliefs, aren't
completely, and it's deplorable. It may be well-intentioned, people don't mean it, but the fact is that has a phenomenal impact, and Sparkle exists to drown out some of that negativity, and I hope to shine a light on the reality of assault and the possibility of your life thereafter. So it's redefining your story to make it work for you, so that you own your story, you tell it your way. It doesn't own you and hold power over you. To reignite your sparkle, so to connect with all of the things that you were and still are, that, you know, you haven't lost parts of yourself, you're not broken, you know, you don't have to wave goodbye to your former self. It's a constant evolution. So to reconnect with the things that make you you, and then to start thinking about the future, because you have to sit with it for a certain amount of time and you have to give it space because it's huge and you need to heal. But then there's a point where it's okay to say, all right, that's done now, and you can move forward from that. So it's not every time I meet a new person, the first thing isn't I'm like, oh, by the way, you should know I was raped. Like, you know, every time, like,
I'd go down well in
literally,
the cocktail
yeah,
party.
exactly. Do you know what I mean? But like, or every time, you know, like, people would tell me whenever you get into a new relationship, you're gonna have to sit them down and have the talk. Really? Which I think partially is now why I'm like, F that, I'll just tell the world and then everybody will know anyway.
Just Google me.
Yeah, exactly. Here's this, here's the website, here's what you need to know. Yeah.
And I'm not broken.
Exactly, and that's made very clear in all of Sparkle's messaging, to help people create a life that they love, to start thinking about the future and realizing that they have a future, because in the immediate aftermath of an assault, I think people think that they don't, and I certainly thought, I was like, well, my life's never going to be the same. You know, it's fine. And again, that isn't to sound dismissive at all. My life is undoubtedly different, but if I'd went to a different uni, or if I'd went to, you know, if I'd chosen a different career path, or if every day you have choices that can take you down a slightly different path, and the assault took me down a slightly different path.
And it wasn't your choice.
No, it wasn't my choice. But you know, you adapt and you work with it and you move on. And I really believe that I would be doing what I'm doing now in some form or another, regardless. But you know, you take the life experiences that are thrown at you, and I don't think they're a blessing. I don't think, you know, it was destined or it was meant to happen. I think that if I hadn't been around rapists that night, I wouldn't have been raped. But I was. So what am I going to do with it? And that's a powerful message, I hope, for other people, because when you've been through trauma, it's about what's done to you, and people need to be reminded that there's something that they can do with it. You can take it wherever you want to take it. You know, if you want to be defined by it and really identify with it, that's okay. But if you don't, that's okay too. And you have that choice, and choice and empowerment really are the key messages surrounding sexual violence that people need to be aware of. And that's what I push forward, and that's what I do. I still work with services. I'm on the National Commissioning Panel for Sexual Violence Services, and it's that element of choice and empowerment. People have been disempowered in the worst possible way, so they need to be, you know, respected, and to realise that they have that choice and that power.
So when you set up Sparkle originally, you set it as a charity, is that
I did,
right?
yeah, I did.
So talk us through that.
Well, do you want the honest answer? I think probably upon reflection, I knew that I wanted to do good, and I knew that I had these ideas. And I think on a subconscious level, completely independently of the assault, more to do with my own personal development and kind of self-realizations, I think that I went out to the world with a bit of an apologetic offering, almost like, this is my idea, but I'll try, and it's just a charity, and I'm going to do something really kind of low key, and it's going to be small and don't look too much, but this is what I'm trying to do. And I think that on a subconscious level, given that I was going out and telling the whole world that I'd been raped, which was not necessarily a popular move amongst people around me, it's like,
we don't talk about that.
Yeah, like
the sort of, what is it, like the Miss Marple, it's behind closed doors, and it's, oh, good Lord, did you know what Laura's up to now? Good Lord, that's terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
But really what you're doing is blowing the doors off everything to, I guess, make the most of the challenges.
Yeah.
But for a force for good, isn't it?
I had to do it my way, and I knew that. I remember 2 days after the assault, just after I'd had my ABE interview, which is your Achieving Best Evidence interview with the police, my dad was like, you're going to talk about this. And I was like, yeah, I know. And that sounds really weird, but I knew even then I would do something positive with it, and I had to do it my way. But it's not popular. People, an assault has an impact wider than just you, and it impacts on your friends and your family, and it's a really traumatic time for them as well, and a time that people want to put behind them. So unearthing it and kind of making a lifestyle out of it, not a lifestyle, but you know what I mean, life choices based on it. people are like, oh my God, stop talking about that. Like, that was awful.
You're making us all uncomfortable.
Sit down. Like, stop making everybody feel awkward. But yeah, so, you know,
Is
I
that
thought,
because everyone else has to, rather than the kind of the old school British approach of let's just bury everything and forget it, it resurfaces, so you're almost challenging everyone else
to deal with it.
You've obviously, what's the word I'm looking for? It's I can't think what the word is. It's admirable, that's what I'm looking for.
That's kind.
That you've been able to process such a trauma through a lot of resilience and make something from that. But I guess what you're also doing is getting others to question and process their own experience of that time, which is evidently uncomfortable.
Exceptionally so. And I think it's uncomfortable for people who had feelings about my assault because they were close to me. And it's uncomfortable for people who are close to me and who have been assaulted but haven't acknowledged it themselves. So I've had very mixed reactions from some friends who have been raped but haven't identified it. And now I'm out here shining this light on sexual assault and consent and what it is to be assaulted and what that means and doesn't have to mean. And it brings up a subject that for some people is really uncomfortable. And the result of that is anger towards me. Because it's a massive reflector. You know, I'm kind of, without kind of doing it intentionally, I'm reflecting it back towards everybody else of this is how I've dealt with it. And it makes people think about how they've dealt with either my assault or their own experience. And people don't want to do that. People are exceptionally good at burying really, really difficult and hurtful things. And I understand why. That's never been my approach. I've always been, ever since I was little, I'm always like, let's talk about it. Let's work it out.
There's
let's
an elephant in the room.
Yeah,
Let's have a
exactly.
chat about
Literally,
it.
like, that's really uncomfortable. Let's talk about it. To everybody else's dismay. Which
Oh, here she goes again.
yeah, exactly. Oh, for goodness sake, Laura, do I have to talk about everything?
Cool, no, just forget about it.
Exactly. I'm a big reflector. So yeah, it's been really challenging, and going out and speaking about it has been, it's not necessarily kind of a popular move, and I got a massively mixed response from people that I know and people that I don't know. I had an overwhelming outpouring of inappropriate messages from men as a result, sexual advances and other things, which I just think is foolish, because if somebody is coming out and saying, you know, I've been assaulted and I've reported the police and I'm going to tell the world, I don't know why that makes people
send you pictures.
Yeah. But you know, people are strange. So
shaking my head.
Yeah, exactly. Tut.
It's just it's just sending pictures anyway. It's just bizarre.
I know. It's
I don't know you, and I don't want to see a picture of that.
Exactly. But it's people, but even like, it got national press coverage and global press coverage, which was really interesting, I thought. And I had messages from people around the world who were saying, we need sparkle in India, or we need sparkle, which was wonderful, and it's on my list. But at the time I was like, we don't even have sparkle in the Northeast yet. What is going on here? But we also, I also got loads of messages, and my marketing team got messages from people overseas like, this is unacceptable, like, put Laura on the phone, I need to have a call with Laura. And so it was strange, but I knew what I was getting myself in for, I suppose. I don't think you fully appreciate it until you do it, but I knew on a level that I was going to get a mixed reaction.
But I think that's inevitable for any transition in history, isn't it? Of whether we've moved to having mixed race schools or PTSD never existed. You used to shoot soldiers that were seen as weak, and you look back at that and you think, well, that was bonkers. But now this is something we're actually addressing and recognizing as this is something that has to be discussed, has to be processed. Yeah. And then so you could almost, we often look back with our guests as to what advice you'd give, but if we fast forwarded to say when you're 50 years old, the event that's been something that's helped to accelerate the creation of Sparkle, perhaps, is 24 years in the no, it's longer than that. It's 28 years in the past. So it's no longer the main driver of your story. All of a sudden, I could imagine your bio is perhaps slightly different. It's yes, there was something when I was in my early 20s, but actually this is what I've done and what I've gone on to do in the world. And it's been, I mean, who was it? Was it Oprah? She talked about an assault when she was younger. I I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, she was raped as a young girl, but she ended up losing the baby. And I remember her father saying to her, "You got to do something with this."
Yeah.
But if you think of all that Oprah's gone through,
Yeah.
Fired for not being news anchor worthy or whatever it was. I know I'm rambling on a bit, but it's getting back to the point of every difficult challenge we've had as a society, I suppose, has required a period of, we don't talk about that, or it's out in the open a little bit more, or now it's acceptable to talk about whatever the issue is. I mean, you could say about the transition at the moment of LGBTQ, there we go. Plus, 30 years ago, wouldn't be talking about that. Now it's something which is more and more prevalent, and I think I could just see it being a transition of you're helping to air an issue that doesn't get talked about enough, doesn't get enough airtime.
That's the thing, and I think I would be naive to think that this is the only bad thing that's ever going to happen to me, to be frank, because really challenging things had happened before, and really challenging things are going to happen again. And really, anybody could choose to hone in on one point of their life or one aspect and make that kind of their bio, if you will. Who knows? Yeah, I'm not wishing ill on myself, but I'm realistic in thinking like I'm only 26. So, there'll be further challenges ahead, and that's okay, because this is part of what Sparkle does. It helps to build you general resilience in your approach to life, so that when bad things happen, you've got yourself. And I think being raped was really the first time where I was really tested and had to have myself. Do you know what I mean? It could have been a different experience, and the output would have been the same. People go through bereavement or mental health issues or breakups or whatever, and have similar transformational kind of moments. And who knows, in 10 years time I might be renowned for another tragedy. I really hope not. But maybe your outfit choices. Yeah, exactly.
You'll be slammed in the press.
I'm happy to take that.
It's like, I've seen her shoes.
Exactly, right. I know.
That handbag does not go with those shoes.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on. It really, this is the thing, this is the point, is your story is what you make it. So I get to choose what is my bio, is what my turning points are, what my core values and characteristics are. I get that choice. So that really is the message. It's one of hope, and it's one of empowerment. To get back to your earlier question, sorry, because we did totally sidetrack. Yes, initially I set up as a charity, and for a whole host of reasons that didn't feel right for me. It didn't feel right for me personally, because I was building Sparkle off the back of a really, I guess, intense personal experience that I had lived. So because I'd lived it, I knew where I wanted to take it. But really I was within very structured, conservative, kind of conventional settings of my family background is public sector. I was working in the public sector, that kind of risk-averse, process-driven attitude of this is the right way to do things, this is how long it should take, this is the governance that you need. And I set up a board of trustees made up of people from those environments, and I had all of these ideas about the directions that I wanted to take it, and understandably the board weren't kind of as open to taking those risks as I wasn't, because I was the only person who'd lived with it. I was like, well, this is what needs to happen, this is the way that it needs to go. And they didn't necessarily see that, because there are intricacies of how you feel and kind of present after an assault that you don't really get unless you've lived it. So I was saying stuff as if it was like a given, and they were like, well, that makes no sense, why wouldn't you do that? And I was like, oh no. And I was getting red tape, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, all I want to do is help people, and I can't help people because you're worried about how I'm helping people. And it just felt crazy to me. Like, we had a couple of younger people come to Sparkle, 14, 15, who'd been assaulted, and I was with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I knew what they needed. I wanted to support them, but the board were like, you can't work with people under 18. And I was like, well, this is ridiculous, because what am I going to do? I'm going to leave these girls at 14 in a really vulnerable environment. I'm going to say, I'm going to see you in 4 years, by which point how many more traumatic experiences have you had? How have you self-medicated? How have you, you know, found other relationships and gotten into abusive situations? And nobody realizes, and I didn't realize, how much more susceptible you are to be re-traumatized, inverted commas, after an initial trauma. So if you've been raped once, you're more likely statistically to be assaulted again, based on the fact that you will be in a really vulnerable state, and if you're not well supported, then that could kind of self-perpetuate. How depressing is that? Nobody talks about it, so you're just left to like, hopefully it doesn't happen. But then if it does, it's like, oh yeah, that is more likely to happen. So I just had a really clear vision of how Sparkle needed to be, and naturally I've always been entrepreneurial. Like, I was always the kid who was like, let's make lemonade and sell it for a profit, or like, let's like make Scoobies and sell them on the playground, or do whatever. Do you know what I mean?
What's a Scooby?
Oh my God, they were like those like plastic.
Too old.
Yeah, they were like plastic, like cable type things, like string that you would like.
Do you make bracelets for them?
Yeah, you'd like weave them into like key rings and bracelets and stuff.
I don't think I ever did that, but
not a
Really?
Scooby.
Oh,
Scooby,
there you go. Honestly, it was excellent. And I used to make like silver jewelry and like all these things and sell it. So I always was kind of that kind of way inclined, and I just knew what I wanted to do. And I think that my initial offering was necessary but apologetic, and upon reflection kind of inaccurate. I was like I say, like, you know, I'm not trying to make too much of a big deal. I'm just being a good woman doing some charity work after being raped. Like, you know, just
sorry,
not very offensive. It's fine. Instead of going out with the real message of kind of power and strength and resilience, and owning the space that I was putting myself into, and really occupying that in the way that I needed to be able to inspire other people to do the same. And because of that, we transitioned into a business which feels far better. And because of that, our offer is far better and able to support more people, and just feels right and feels really kind of real and authentic for me. And getting back to what we were speaking about earlier, just because you've been raped doesn't necessarily mean that you want charity. Do you know what I mean? Even the concept of going to a charity is so jarring for people who, like, 24 hours before were just living their normal life as, like, I don't know, for me, a 22-year-old like woman who was self-sufficient, and, you know, it doesn't resonate with people. I wanted to create something that was powerful and empowering, and that wasn't dependent year on year on funding, and, you know, might not be sustainable. And I wanted this to be really strong and consistent and powerful and positive, and I wanted to do it my way, because I really feel strongly that my way is a way that can bridge a gap for people, and that can create something that is really unique and that doesn't exist. So that was how Sparkle evolved.
So
Yes.
talk us through what your customers,
clients, I don't know.
your people,
My people.
what can they get from Sparkle?
Really, we offer a range. So our kind of core offer is I do one-to-one coaching and a group coaching program, working with people who've experienced trauma. It's not exclusively sexual assault. Some people resonate with Sparkle, and the kind of our ethos is for them, and they've experienced a bereavement, or, you know, they've got a career challenge and they want coaching, and that's what we're here for. If you feel like Sparkle's for you, we're for you. So we do our one-to-one coaching program called Light It Up, and I do a group coaching program called Phoenix, and that's with people who've been sexually assaulted. Because sexual assault is so isolating and such a unique and isolating experience, having other people around you who have a similar positive mentality and who are working towards creating a life that they love in that kind of really positive and hopeful way is a really powerful experience, I think. So we offer that, and we are also starting now Sparkle workshops, so face-to-face meetups. The coaching can be done remotely, so I coach people from across kind of the country, but there's a need, and people seem to be really craving being together and kind of in that space and having that face-to-face interaction. So as of next month, we will be starting not only Sparkle meetups in the Northeast, but also Sparkle retreats. Haven't told anybody this yet.
Retreats.
I know,
That's so
right?
exciting.
Literally, I haven't told anybody that yet. So that's an exclusive.
I'm going to ask the question.
Oh my goodness.
At your retreat, will there be meat?
will there be meat?
Yeah, all of these retreats are all vegan.
Oh, no. There's meat.
Good. I was just checking.
It's going to be a seasonal retreat. So last year, one of our most successful events was a Christmas event. So I love Christmas. I think it's the most magical time. And Sparkle is centered around that kind of magic and seeing the magic in the world. That's what I want people to feel. And Sparkle is something that I felt long before I could articulate it. So we're going to be doing a Christmas retreat. Yes, there will be meat there.
There'll be meat there.
There will be. Don't worry, it's not a vegan retreat. As much as there is a strong market for vegan retreats, I will be offering meat because I wasn't vegan before the assault, so I'm not going to be vegan afterwards. So there you go.
Oh, we've got a scoop. That's what they say in the biz.
Exactly. You have got some scoop here. There's loads of really exciting stuff going on at the minute. So I wanted to nail our core offer of coaching and to that kind of connection. I needed to get that right, and I work with some really phenomenal people and really feel privileged to do that, and it's having an impact, and that's great. So I have clients, I'm open to clients, and that's really positive. But I also wanted to give people a wider offer. Sometimes if you've buried something for a really long time, then you need to kind of have a more light touch approach, which is why now we have the face-to-face events, and also it's our first birthday coming up, and I just wanted to cause a bit of a stir. So we're gonna be doing a campaign for the first birthday, and then we're going to be having a first birthday party celebration and unveiling of that campaign, and that's really spreading the message that there's life after assault. There's hope, there's positivity, and helping people to tell their story their way, because this is what we need to be doing. There's the one-to-one kind of stuff, I would say, and in my NHS brain, I think operational and strategic. So there's the operational stuff, there's the on the ground, there's the working with people and doing everything like that. And then there's the more strategic side of how do we make services better more broadly. And that's all of the commissioning stuff. There's also a bigger kind of strategic piece about changing how people think and speak about sexual violence. And that's really what this campaign is about, because there's real power in seeing somebody who is on the other side of something you're about to take on. And when I was assaulted, I looked around and I saw no examples of people who were openly talking about the fact that they'd been assaulted, but they were okay and they were happy and life was good. And if you don't see it, it's so much harder to believe that it's possible for yourself. So I am, me and a group of other people who've experienced similar are going to be going out to the world with our experiences and saying, this is us, this is what's happened, this is where we are with it, and this is how strong and powerful and beautiful we are, and how great our stories are, and we're happy and we're living our lives, and join us. Exactly. And join us. Exactly. So that's the message, and that's kind of the range of the Sparkle ethos and mission, and my personal ethos and mission covers all of that. So it's really exciting. There's loads going on with Sparkle at the minute, and I'm really happy.
When's the birthday?
So, well, Sparkle's first birthday was on the day that I was assaulted, because everyone was like, oh, every year it would come around and people would be like, oh, it's, what do you call it? Like, as if it needed a name. Again, I probably shouldn't say this. People always think this is so abhorrent. But initially, when people were like, faffing around trying to think of a word for it, I was like, are you referring to my rape anniversary? And everyone's like, oh my god. And I'm like, well, we've got to call it something. I might as well make it lighthearted, because that's effectively what you're talking about. So initially I referred to it as my rape anniversary. People find that really shocking, except people who've been assaulted, who are kind of like, lol, get it, yeah, this is how we are. But yeah, so, and I was sick of that day having some sort of a kind of shadow. So the day that I was assaulted was, the morning that I was assaulted was my mum's birthday. So it was just tarnishing the whole kind of thing, and it was in people's heads that it was a deal, and I was like, this isn't a deal. So I decided to launch Sparkle on that day. So the 20th of August is Sparkle's first birthday, and I will be announcing on all of our social media soon when we'll be having our first birthday party, because it's going to be really special and I'm really excited. I can't share with you all yet exactly what it is, but it's just going to be lush, and it's exactly what I wanted.
There's going to be glitter involved though, isn't there?
There is so much glitter involved. You'll understand more when you find out what it is, but in a large way, there's only glitter involved.
Only glitter.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot, and I'm very excited. But this was the point. What I wanted with Sparkle was to give people a space to shine and to be celebrated, because overcoming an assault is really bloody hard, and nobody celebrates you for it. You know, it's a massive achievement is the wrong word, but it's something phenomenally huge to overcome, and I think it deserves recognition. And I want to give these people, predominantly women, but not just women, within the campaign, recognition, deserved recognition, for what they've accomplished and what they've been through, and to celebrate them in a really positive and happy way. Nobody celebrates around this subject, and I understand why it's so heavy and so morbid. But there's an element of realism and an element of lightness that I hope that Sparkle brings. That is something different, and it'll be right for some people and it won't be right for others, but it gives people the choice of something different, and that's really what's crucial.
I like the approach. It reminds me a bit of the differences around the world in how we celebrate or don't celebrate someone dying.
Yeah.
A bit like the Mexicans make it more of the celebration of someone's life rather than it be the sadness of, oh, well, I was going to say bury that, but that's a bad pun. Let's move on from this event and not bring it up.
Yeah.
Whereas it's making something, well, as the name suggests, more sparkly, more fun, more glittery, in that you've got through this and can be more and do more and have a much happier, fulfilling life without having to remain in the past, which can be said for anyone. You don't have to have suffered huge trauma in your life. It could be a business failure. It could be your cat dying. Anything that's quite sad. I think there's a quote, isn't there? It's failure is an event, not a person. And that could be said of trauma as well. It's just an event.
That's it. It's an awful event, but it's an event, and an event has an end point.
Yes.
And that's okay. You acknowledge it, and I don't diminish it for a second. I can't stress that enough, but it can end, and it's okay that it ends, and you move on and something else starts, and that is absolutely my approach. It was awful, but it's not me. It, out of everything in my life that's happened, it's the least me. So I'm not gonna carry it for the rest of my life. I can tell my story and I'll tell it my way, but this incident really had nothing to do with me. I could have been anyone, and that's the harsh reality. Is this was a kind of freak incident, if you will, from my side. It was an anomaly. It was unfortunate. It was the wrong place, the wrong time, and there's nothing that I could have done to change it. There's nothing I had to do with it, and that's it. And you move on. I won't carry it. It's not mine. It belongs to somebody else.
So we always like to wrap up with the final question, which is, if we could take you back to the younger Laura, would you have any words of wisdom to offer?
I would just say that you've got this. I think that it's weird. I feel, so I do a lot of like inner child stuff, and I feel very caring towards myself. Like in my mind, like there's a big place for little Laura, and I feel like I look after her well. So what I say to myself now and what I would say to myself then is, you've got it, darling, you're all right. Like there's lots of love, you're okay. Be kind, do your best, you'll be all right. And that you're really capable of anything. And that's it. I think that's the message that I give to anybody, and that I want to give to everybody that I work with, is you've got it, you're all right. And I just surround people with love and light and hope, and that's how I look back at little Laura through the ages. At all points I send her lots of love. I take care of her. Sounds crazy, but like I really believe it.
Not crazy at all.
We buy into that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work around self-worth is coming from childhood experiences and trauma to an extent. I've done some work as well on not necessarily, it's a childhood trauma in the sense of an event that's marked you in some way that still remains with you to this day, which has a strong bearing on your own self-worth. So by actually going back and providing that love and moving beyond that experience, there's an improvement in your overall self-worth, really, and how you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, and actually what you're doing if you're actually going after your dreams and doing something about it. So It's not crazy at all. We totally
This-
buy into it.
This is how I feel. Just that sense of that it's that kind of inner dialogue of taking care of yourself.
It's my inner leadership team.
Wow.
My inner family on the fridge.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're the voices in my head. So yeah,
I
totally,
love it.
totally with you.
You have many and a cat. Perfect.
Yeah, it's Mrs. Filch. That's the
Oh.
imposter
Not
syndrome.
Mrs. Norris.
Mrs. Norris.
Yeah.
Mrs. Filch. Oh, that would be really wrong.
Oh. Yeah, that's not.
That's Filch having relations
Oh.
and marrying his cat.
That's
Probably
unfortunate.
happened though, to be fair.
Well, stranger things. There you go. No, I feel this very strongly, and just lots of love and compassion and kindness, and that's how I try and treat myself, and that's what I try and go out to the world with.
Excellent. So, if a tech-savvy cat or human
Yes.
is out in the interweb space,
Yes.
how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
I am most prolific. Is that the right word?
It is.
Okay, I'm most prolific on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
My handle for most things is Sparkle with Laura Currer, Currer. And that is the website, the Instagram page, Facebook and Twitter. But Instagram is where I'm most active. If you want to know more about our coaching programs, then I would recommend going to the website. And for all future announcements to do with our Sparkle events, our retreats, and our big birthday hurrah, Instagram is the first place where I'll reveal all of that. And that's where you can find my daily Sparkle, which is my morning vlog every weekday at 8 o'clock on my IGTV. So it's all out there. We're here for you.
Excellent.
Well, thanks for sharing your story with us and
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having
being
me.
a beacon of light for the world.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sure
kind.
we'll be hearing more about you in the years to come.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway.
And tell everybody.